Hi, fellow QAs. Today I want to show you a plugin that implemented a few weeks ago. It's called PW API plugin. I have been working with Cypress for a while and I wanted to explore Playwright. I think it's a very compelling test framework and I wanted to explore what the capabilities are for API testing. So when I start working with this, I noticed that there was a gap in the API testing. It seems to me that when you run those tests in Playwright for API using the standard API interface, the results are not presented in a clear way that can facilitate the debugging of your API. So I thought, okay, how can we make this more intuitive when there is an issue where you can check what is going on, inspect all the stuff. And this is the reason why I implemented this plugin. I'm going to tell you how you can implement a project, but not just that, also how you can migrate your existing Playwright API testing projects to use this new API plugin. For that, we're going to start from a brand new project. Let's install Playwright. And we are going to choose all the default stuff. Now it's initializing the project and creating all the folders, a sample test. Okay, now we have here our Playwright project. We are just going to use this sample file that they provide us, and we are going to work on that, okay? We're going to create our own tests. And the website, the API that we're going to use is this one called Toolshop API. It's free and you can just find it in here. It has a number of methods and we're going to be focusing in the get. For the get, you pass the request URL is apipracticesourcetesting.com/brands and it returns an array of objects of tools. All the post where we pass a body that include name and Slack, and it's gonna return a 201 if it's successful with that information plus an ID. This is what we're gonna be doing. Okay, we have our import. We import test and spec. In order to make the video shorter, I have just the example here prepared. Okay, this is a typical API testing. We have a describe. We are going to be testing the Toolshop API. And our first test is going to verify the get operation. So we are going to be doing, we are receiving the request in the test, typical. And then we are going to do an await request get. We pass the URL that we saw before. The expected result is going to be a 200. We are going to obtain the JSON body for that response, and we are going to check that there are at least one element. Our second test is going to be a post. It's also going to be receiving the request in the test. And then we are going to call the post, passing as data, the name and the Slack. That are the two fields that they are needed. The expected result, according to the API documentation, is going to be a 201 if it's successful. We receive the body. And then we are going to check that it has the response has the property sample brand, that is the field that we pass in the post. Let's run this in our user interface. Okay, let's make this bigger. Here are 2 tests, and we run them. Both tests pass. Check it out here, that this is something I have noticed, that the actions panel, it tells you it's doing an API request and then tell you expect it to be, but it's not telling you what value do you get and you expect it to be what. And the same thing with the second assertion. This is something that it's kind of confusing coming from Cypress Runner. Cypress Runner tell you exactly what is the value that you get and what is the value that you are expected, and if it fails or not, why is that, even when it passes. But well, let's focus in the API. You can see that it passed, but I have nothing. This area is not used. This is where a regular web page will show up, but because we are not visiting a web page, it doesn't show up. And if you want to see information for that API call, you need to come here to the network tab. Let's make this a little bigger. And then you have here request, the URL, get method, request headers, and the response headers, and the response body, right? Well, as I said, coming from Cypress, where there are a bunch of plugins and the Cypress log show you a little more information about that, that for me, if I'm debugging my test, API testing, I think it could be better. We could have something that is more visual and can really help me to debug this stuff much faster. The same thing for the post. When you go to the post and you select that post, you see that the request, the response, and the response body, it tells you what it got. Okay? So let's close this now. So how can we use instead this new plugin I created? Well, the first is we're going to import the class for Playwright API testing from Playwright API plugin. Okay, we don't have the plugin yet, so we are going to install. For that, we do an npm install as the dependency Playwright API plugin available in npm. If you check the package now, Playwright plugin is here, and our example is not complaining anymore. Now let's adapt this thing. This plugin is going to show in the user interface the details of the API calls, responses, requests and responses in a graphical way. So for that, we are going to actually need the page, because we're going to use that area of the page to show that information, as is shown here in this video. Right? This area that usually is not used is going to show this information. So because we're going to be interacting with that, we need to receive the page. So we are going to update our tests and add the page. And the next thing that we are going to do is we are going to migrate these requests to what is expected by the plugin. So for that, I created a repo called PW API plugin sample project that it tells you how you can migrate from your project using standard API calls from Playwright to use the plugin. It's what we are doing in this video, but I would like to point it out this repo because all the things that we are seeing in this video is described in this repo. So it's saying that replace await request get with await Playwright API, that is the class that take care of those calls, get, and we are passing the request and the page. So it's saying replace all that by this other thing. So this is the class for making using the native Playwright API. And we are going to pass this request and the page. There's another class called Axios API because this plugin also supports Axios, but we are going to see that in a different video. And now for the post, it says replace await request post with await rewrite API post request and page. And we are going to replace this thing. Okay, so number one, import the class for using Playwright native API. We add page in the test, and we replace our request.get for PW API get, and we are passing the page and the read. However, for this plugin, I have implemented also the method test. And this method test is an extension of the standard Playwright, but it includes some performance improvement specific for when we are rendering this information in the user interface. So if for some reason we are not really using interface and we are disabling that user interface through an environment variable that we're going to see, then you don't have to create that resource and the tests are going to be faster. This is described here in the documentation of the plugin, extension of the test function. So we are going to be importing tests from Playwright API plugin. And we remove from the standard import. Now let's run those tests. We run these tests. This has failed. Let's see this one. So this test, when we select and you click in the set content or in the spec, You can see that directly is showing here the request. Is a method guest, is a URL, API practice our testing brands. The response is a 200 OK. It shows you the duration approximately. As you know, you cannot get exactly duration from the Playwright API methods, so the plugin need to do some calculation here, and it returns those 4 records that we saw, and also it returns the header. And for the post, something went wrong in the post. What is happening here? It says I did a request method post, the brands, the body that we send, say brand, and it says status 422 unprocessable content. It says, oh, Slack, a brand already exists with this Slack. Remember that we ran this test before with sample brand, or API already have that in the database. So what we're gonna do is this tool help us to identify that the API didn't went as expected. We check our API and say, oh, yes, right, my test is incorrect because I should have put here a different record because I already have that in my database. We go back to our tests, we make the change, and go back and run the post. And it worked. Sample brand, send the body, Slack brand, and it gives you sample brand. It says expected to have property. This is it seems the second, so the API call work is the second expected, the second thing. If complain, it says, oh, wait a minute. Sample brand is sample brand. Yes, we are getting here sample brand. And it's because or assertion was incorrect because it was still from the previous test. So you can see how this API plugin can help you doing debugging your testing, but not only is able to create those cards for with the API details in the Playwright user interface, but also this works for the trace viewer, and even you can create those and include in your HTML reports as attachment. How we do that? We are going to prepare our test because we already have been using number 2. We are going to use now number 3. This is just specific for this API because it does not reset. We're not resetting the database in every single execution. We are going to cancel. And if we go to the documentation, or even to the project, sample project with the migration, it tells you here that if you want to display the API request and response in the HTML report, what you need to do is pass an environment variable log API report equal to true. Also notice that there is another environment variable log API UI that is the one that we use for creating those results in the Playwright user interface, but by default is enabled, so we don't have to explicitly put it here. However, if you set this environment variable to false and then you want to reset, if you don't want to kill your terminal, the only thing you can do is just set it back to true, and that should work. Okay, so we are gonna set this this environment variable here. And now we are going to run our test. We are just going to run without the Playwright user interface. Yeah, there is some attachment here. Oh, it's a 2 fail and 4 pass. This is probably something that went wrong in the API call. Well, this is why this tool can help us. So it should have generated this report here. Okay, here it is. Exactly. Look, interesting, right? Look, the post works the first time, but failed the other two. Remember, because we inserted that record in database, it's already failed. So if you check it here, it's telling you, well, expected 200, but received 22 because it already existed. But look at here now. You get this API call with all the details, the set content, and you can see that the expected fail in the status. And here, check here in attachment, it has the API post request. And when we click it, here it is, or card exactly as it was presented in the Playwright user interface. So you don't have to learn another way how to read those cards. They are exactly the same. As happened before, you can see that the status when we call with brand 3 already exists here, brand 3, because it was created for the test in the when it was run, I think, in Chromium in this case. So notice how this report is actually helping you to know exactly what is going on as we had in the user interface. And this is something that currently is not supported in Playwright at all. But even more, let's go back. See that it's in fully interactive. And it's fully interactive because this was implemented with CSS styles, pure CSS. It does not have JavaScript. So this is why it works in the Playwright user interface, trace viewer, and also as an attachment. And if we go back to one of the successful one, you can also check the results. Cool, eh? Okay, let's now do something else. We are gonna stop that. And this time we are gonna enable the trace viewer. Trace on and see what is happening. Now all the post tests are gonna fail because these 3 already existed. So it's gonna be 3 pass and 3 fail. Yep, 3 pass and 3 fail. And if we bring back that, see, all the posts fail. So let's have a look. Here is all the stuff. Here is our attachment. And look at that. Here in traces, you can just open the tracer. And look at that. The tracer, the trace viewer, has all this exact functionality that we had in the user interface. The trace viewer seems has here a hiccup. It's now not showing. Interesting. Huh. That's interesting. Oh, no, that was the other report. Wait a minute here. Let me open again. Trace viewer, see? Look, interesting. It shows up here. It's fully interactive. Fully interactive. For some reason, I click somewhere here and the content disappear. Huh. Okay. Anyway, what do you guys think about this tool? I think it's a pretty cool tool, and I think it's filling a gap that has been for a while in Playwright. I know Playwright is working in some change in their core product where they are gonna be moving the network tab from here to here and have something similar to what I did already. That is, clicking here is gonna be showing the network tab with the selected call, so you don't have to click in here. You can just click in the actions. Yep. But the interesting thing in this plugin is these are shown here in a very user friendly format, and also you can include in the report all this information as an attachment. Okay. See you guys in the next video.